On Monday, Hood River White Salmon Bridge commissioners continued to talk about the fact we still need $532 million in funding, and talked about why people may still be confused about the funding.
But there continues to be confusion about whether the project was fully funded. I still see people online saying, why are they still looking for money if the project is fully funded? So can you set the record straight on that and explain why the EIP, the Bridge Investment Program, news is good news? And could you explain that?
I'm sorry, could you reframe that? Which part? The
recent, the 25 awards.
Okay, just a little bit about that.
Yep.
Sure. So we put up a post on the project website, which I can send around to as well. But so the project had applied to the Bridge Investment Program in two successive funding rounds, the fiscal year 25 round and the fiscal year 26 round. The application was for $532 million, which constitutes the remainder of the financing package that we need in order to go to construction. U.S. Department of Transportation reviews applications, and on their own timeline, they issue awards. And so up until last week, we didn't know if those two funding rounds were going to be issued concurrently, or frankly, if anything was being reviewed back in DC. But a week and a half ago now, the DOT, the Department of Transportation, did release the fiscal year 25 funding round awards, where they awarded two projects, one in Pennsylvania and one in Alaska, for a total of about $708 million. So like Jake Okenberg mentioned earlier, that leaves just the fiscal year 26 round that's still in play for about $3.3 billion left in that pot. And so our project still has an application pending in that round, and we are waiting to hear back from the U.S. Department of Transportation.
So the good news is the program is moving forward, and that there's considerable money still left for projects like ours.
And we had a better score for the 26 application than I did in the 25.
Mm-hmm. And you'll remember the 25 application we put in November of 24. And then we got notice that we needed to resubmit in June on a very constrained timeline. I think it was 14 days. Mm-hmm. And staff scrambled to make that happen. So that's the one that we didn't get.
Can I just make a comment that goes to that point, and that is that our 2026 application is actually a very different application than our 2025, and it's much better. So as the commissioner, the chair mentioned, our 2025 application was a resubmittal of our 2024 application, and after that application was submitted, and that application incidentally was scored as highly recommended. So it was a good application in its own right. Then between the 2025 submission and the 2026 round, FHWA issued a completely revised set of guidelines for the cost-benefit analysis. And so between those two applications, for the 2026 application, we actually completely redid our cost-benefit analysis and actually improved our cost-benefit ratio to 1.9. They also issued some guidance on realigning the applications to match the priorities of the current administration. The 2025 application reflected priorities of the prior administration. The 2026 application has been revised to reflect, an emphasis on the new administration's priorities. So overall, all of the experts that we have involved in this are thinking that there's certainly no reason to think it won't be highly recommended, and that it is a stronger and better application. So our fingers are crossed on that one.
So the second piece was that when we received the record of decision, there were a bunch of news items about that, and people still seem to be confused and believe that that receiving the record of decision means that we're good to go and everything's full speed ahead. So can we again state for the record that that is our environmental, is clearance the right word? No. Environmental approval process. That doesn't mean that we have the money. What we have the money for is for the design process, which is underway. The actual construction funds are awaiting this award, which is why we are so eager to have people in DC to represent our project to get us that money.
And on the comm side, we're aware of this issue and do our best to make sure we characterize anytime we talk about going to construction in 2027, we say things like pending the full, the receipt of the last piece of federal funding, or we find ways to include that every time. People don't always
Read through the
don't always
sentence.
get it, don't always see it. We will continue to endeavor to make that clear.
I think people get 6 words into the sentence, not 10 words in.
Bridge.
That raises a good point. I mean, I've read them as they've come across feeds, and I think actually the comms were crystal clear.
Oh, they were definitely correct.
So I'm curious, like, how large is this confusion to which you referred?
I am getting it virtually daily, and I have been for 6 months now.
What platform did you get it on?
Well, this most recent one, where did I see it? I think I saw it on the Inform Hood River Facebook page, was what I saw this weekend.
Okay.
And it wasn't, it wasn't Inform Hood River, it was people commenting on it who were obviously confused. And I don't know if that got corrected. I didn't step in to correct it, but I don't know if it got corrected or not. But
Yeah, I was curious if it was a platform that we're not on, but we're all over Facebook, so.
yep.
Okay.
Okay, congrats. You stuck it out this far. So now remember, the record of decision was the approval of environmental work done for the project that showed what would be done, the right of ways, the environmental mitigation, the coordination with tribal members and all other agencies to protect wildlife, water, and all sorts of other resources. Funding is the dollars. And we don't get the funding unless the Bridge of Investment Program application succeeds. So those are two separate things. Thanks for listening.